Hello? Great. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Hopefully no one will going to appear from behind. If not, this is going to be the funniest keynote ever. So, hi everyone. As he said before, my name is Rodrigo Garcia. I'm the CSO, Chief Strategy Officer in EuroIT. We are a digital product agency from Uruguay, Colombia, and now actually in US too, in Los Angeles. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we follow a pro-first approach to transform ourselves into a different value proposition, into a different offering, following the same, in a way, tools, the same methodologies that we have been hearing and discussing in the previous keynotes, and that we usually do or use when we build our products. In our case, the product is our service, it's our company, right? So the truth is that every time that we think, or you think, or we start planning, doing some planification about transformation can be tough, right? Because there are a lot of different variables or conceptions that we need to analyze, or we need to define, like, for example, in an analysis done by Concurrency, the consultancy firm, you can find that there are a lot of elements that can impact during the transformation, right? From the change in company culture, thinking beyond a campaign mentality in digital strategy efforts, cooperation between the partner and team silos, all different elements that we have discussed before. And one simple thing, a small thing that we have seen through during our internal process, and that you can find here when the people answer this survey, is that all different elements that can impact the transformation are very important. So at the same time, how can you prioritize? It happens at the same time when you launch a new product, right? How can you prioritize which feature do you want to follow up? Well, the same happened that here we're doing the transformation, and the same thing happened to us. Where should we focus that, right? And to be honest, if you ask me, the most difficult side of doing any kind of transformation or pivoting is embracing the uncertainty. Because there are a lot of things that you are not 100% sure. Is the new offering, is the new value proposition the best possible way that we need to follow? Do we have all the data that we need to go through this path? Are we sure that all the stakeholders are on board with the decision that we have taken? All the things that we have here during the previous presentations. And the truth is that although that we have a lot of methodologies or frameworks or processes to validate in a way that we are going to the right place, and we do our measuring, and we do our analyze our scoreboards and dashboards, we are not 100% sure. And we have to embrace that, because that's the thing. And one of the dogmas that there's gaining some popularity over there, probably you have heard about that, and we usually do it or use it as an internal dogma, is the approach of organization as a product. I mean, using all the different tools, using all the different conception of how to create a product internally inside of our organization. So defining how is our internal process, defining how are we going to define our processes for each one of the areas, doing as a product, measuring, testing different approaches, creating a framework, creating a backlog for each one of the stakes. And as Neville Reeves, who is the VP of Product Strategy at Roofstrap, a really cool agency over there, if you don't know them, you should know it, has created some sort of a framework when he presented what is our organization as a product, as a way of doing things. He talked about some parallelism between the way that we create a product and the way that a chess game goes through. You have at the beginning a first move, which is your strategy. And you still know that for the people who doesn't play chess too much, at the beginning the first steps has a name, like the attack of some kind of, there's a name for each one of the first steps. Because that's the strategy, that's the vision that you have, and that lights and the north points to the right position or the right place that you want to go. And after you follow that first step, there are the tactics or there are the specific step that you give. And that depends a lot of what the opponents do. Who is the opponent in this case? The reality, right? The context. How the user reacts, how the client reacts to the strategy that you are proposing, to each specific tactics. And at the end of the game, at the end of the chess game, you have the retrospective. Okay, that this makes sense? All the things that we did, was the best possible option that we had to do, that we had done? We could have done it better. Maybe we made a big mistake. That kind of thing happens a lot. And the truth is that when you follow an organization as a product kind of approach or framework, you see or you find yourself that all the different elements that we usually use when we are creating product, you can do it to give shape to your organization. And if we follow the linear validation kind of framework, we see that we can validate the market, as we validate the market for our different products that we launch to market in some cases. We can validate the product, in our case, the service that we are proposing, a new value proposition that we are proposing, and you can validate the audience. Considering that the markets speak more about the different actors and competitors that could be over there, if we have room to impact over there, and the audience considering the different places, if there's real people over there that we can impact or not. All this with the hope that we are going to reduce the risk, hopefully, right? And usually using a framework, right? One of the key words in all these different presentations, all the different keynotes that you will see during these days and the following days that you see keynotes. And you have to have a framework, right? You have to have like a map that guides you through a different process. And the truth is that I really like this framework, which the source is on the bottom of the screen. It doesn't see here, but it's from Sean Layton, who talks about the leadership transformation framework, and it has a lot of steps. We can discuss it later about the different steps, but the truth is that no matter if you see a framework that has 14 steps, or you see a framework that has 3 steps or 5 steps, the truth is that most of the different frameworks from transformation standpoint work, or at least from our organizational design standpoint, works around 4 or 5 steps, right? Forces of change. Why are we transforming something? Why are we pivoting? Is something externally that is pushing through that side, or something internally? Is there a stakeholder who has an idea, who one day woke up and he started thinking, oh, I hate my life, I had to change the thing that I'm doing right now, and we had to pivot it right now. Well, you have those forces. Now you had to create the roadmap. You had to put together the vision. You had all the things that we have seen in the previous keynote. And you have to create the tactics that you're going to follow through, as the chess game that we've talked before, and then the measuring. Creating the scorecards, creating how often are we going to measure that, what are the different key OKRs, if that's the framework that you're going to follow up, or the different KPIs or things like that. But the truth is that all these different elements sounds nice in theory, sounds really nice, and it helps you. It helps us to feel comfortable that the way that we are doing things makes sense. But it's true that when you test it in real life, especially at an organizational level, it's tough. And let's talk a little bit about what we have been living, or we have been going through in EURIT for the last 2.5 years, something like that, which has been our transformation process. And when did we start? Where were we? We started with the forces of change, as I said before, when the Sean Layton framework. EURIT in 2020 was a product development agency more focused on the staffing kind of delivery, or more focused on the technological kind of value proposition. We had a core, really great developed teams in Uruguay, Colombia, and the kind of value proposition that we have, our work was based mostly on that, on the high-tech capacity. We're more than 16 clients and 105 EURITers all over South America. And the thing is that for those who doesn't work maybe in the vendor side, staffing means that we are focusing on staff augmentation and renting cars by the hour and augmenting and assessing project team and structure. It means that we need to be right there for that specific moment for a client. Maybe they need one developer with one specific technology, then later change the project and they need another help with another different technology. We have to be there for that specific moment. And the truth is that being there for that specific moment, and that is great in a way, because there is a really big market, because all product people really like to know, or really like to have in our hands the future of the product. So what do you need? Most probably we need a few hands that do the development. So there were we. And there was a high delivery quality, and that's the hidden part of the story in the short term. Why? Because the developers, when they took a task that they had to do, they felt really motivated at the beginning, but in the long term, they didn't understand quietly why they were doing what they do, and they didn't understand why the product was the best idea possible. So the delivery, as we're going to see in a few minutes, was kind of hard. This is a really like a slide with a lot of text, and I know you're thinking, I'm not going to read that, and I embrace you, and I wouldn't do that too, but this is part of a survey that we did last year with product people from different companies, Netflix, Google, and things like that, when they asked us about, or we asked them about outsourcing and what were their thoughts about outsourcing and the different trends or different things that they were appreciating or they were seeing during the last years, and the truth is that the pandemic brought a few things, and one of the most important things was that we accepted that we could do at least some part of our jobs remotely. And when we accepted that, it doesn't only mean that we can do it with our current team, but it means that, hey, why are we hiring in the places that we are hiring? Why do we have the team in the places that we have our teams? So a lot of people, lots of companies start considering more and more doing outsourcing in different places, specifically in our case in South America. So as the phrase says, business was booming. There was a lot of opportunities all over the place for adding value to our clients, to our partners from a technological standpoint. And so if everything is great, why to pivot, why to change? Well, the truth is that, as I said before, there were some cons, there were some issues doing staffing, and the thing is that there were some low attachment from our team or from our development team with the project that they were taking, and even with our company. And if the pandemic and the COVID-19 pandemic brought some things, and probably you have seen that, is the attrition issue. There are a lot of people changing their job because, if I don't know, the cultural impact that they have not going to the office, not working every single day with your partner, but saying, okay, why am I not considering some other option? So there was a lot of low attachment from the different developers internally with our company and externally with our vendors, with our partners, which brought some long-term delivery quality, decreasing on the long-term delivery quality. And all this was based mostly on not understanding why they were building what they were building. They were not it was focusing on the specific elements of the delivery. They don't understanding why they were building what they were building. And especially from our standpoint, one of the most stressful or complex elements is, instead of being seen or being considered as a partner, is being considered just as a vendor. Someone that you can change if something wrong happens, because if they don't know, the vendor, the person who is working to you every single day, don't know what they do, what they're doing, why they do what they are doing, what limits you to change them, right? You can find it anywhere else, someplace, in some other market. So if we had that force of change pushing us to one side, we decided to do that kind of auditing internally to analyze the context, analyze what was happening inside our company. What was our internal organization? How does it look like? What was our offering? What was our value proposition? How we communicate that value proposition, because probably we had a value proposition idea of what was the best thing that we do, but we want to communicate that things as good as we thought that we were doing that. What was our market in that moment and in the moment of pivoting? We will see that in a few minutes. And what are the different teams or personal gaps that we will have to fight to or against to right now and the moment that we finish our pivoting or changing our value proposition? So one of the things that we did or start mapping is a digital product development or competitor landscape of the different type of services that we have been doing and we were probably considering to start doing. And we start mapping out where were we, what are the different companies that we were competing at that moment, and where are the different companies that we could be competing in the future in the case that we decided to go through one of the sections to another of the sections. Because saying one day that, it would be great to do product design, it doesn't make much sense if we are going to compete with a lot of companies that you cannot compete from either side, from any standpoint. And after doing that, with some of the tools that probably some of you already use, which is a strategy canvas, we started mapping and analyzing the different qualities of the delivery of different agencies and different companies that we were hoping to compete or we were competing right now. Some of the companies, maybe you have heard about them, like MetaLab, Work & Co, and Globant. Some of the companies maybe you haven't heard, like Overactive. But there are some other actors that we have been comparing ourselves previously, and we were hoping to compare ourselves in the future. And that kind of mapping allows us to identify different opportunities that adding some extra value, that adding some extra quality in our delivery, we can bring some differences from the company that we previously compete, and we can create opportunity to be real close to some key members in the market. So now that we analyze the context that we were in, we start defining the strategy, how we're going to reach to that point. And one of the points was to change basically one of the elements inside our value proposition or our business model. And changing that, in our case, was to pivot from the staff augmentation to the project outsourcing, to focusing not only in adding value from the technology standpoint, but adding value also from considering, understanding, and proposing new things from a completely project standpoint, to understand why we were doing the things that we were doing, to understand how is the roadmap, the long-term roadmap, to show the developers, the designers, and the product people in our teams that there were a long-term vision behind the thing that they were making. And putting that in place in the hands of the developers, designers, and product people was great. And the reception that we received was awesome. And also, it drastically changed the kind of project that we were used to work for a different kind of project. So a product-like kind of project mostly. We try to pivot into starting working in projects where we see the whole roadmap, where we can participate in the definition of that roadmap, when we can add value and we can help our different clients to take it to the next steps, putting the product at the center on every single business function, not only from the technological standpoint. Now we're going to see how we did that. And the business model, the definition of the business models make us or take us through the definition of what is going to be our newest company vision and direction for this new value proposition. What was going to be the specific value proposition that we were going to add to our partners, the market that we were going to penetrate, the personal gap, and start creating a specific tactic to match it, how we can generate a new corporate culture, and how we can improve the performance of products and design areas, the project performance, and the team training. There are a lot of new things that we needed to start learning how to do it, and we needed different roles. There was a lot gap that we needed to cut at, but we had a process. And the truth is that when you follow a process of organization as a product, in the overall structure of your organization, you can do the same thing with each one of the departments. And we start doing that. And that was one of the key elements about which stakeholder we included in the process. We tried to include stakeholders for every single department and try to show them how to follow the same logic. So a logic based on understanding the strategy that we were trying to follow, the different mapping that we were trying to analyze or we're trying to define, and the insight that we can take or we could take for the content that we were or from the different users, or in this case for the hiring department or for the human resources department, the different candidates that they were working. It was a lot of changes on the process that we were used to work and each one of the departments that we had in a company. And something funny that we take as an analogy in a way is that if our organization is a product, maybe what are the different features? And we start changing all the different elements inside our process. And one of the elements or feature that we have is the OKR. We usually, in the previous structure that we had, our OKRs were per vertical, per area. So each one of the areas had different OKRs, different goals, and each one were following their own goals. Consider that we were transforming our internal process or we were pivoting our internal process, we needed to change how we were doing that. So we decided to take a cascade model of OKRs when we have just a few objectives that were cross-company, and every single department, every single vertical will have their own KRs, but following up or allowing us to reach those objectives. So that was a great way to put everyone on the same page and to make them see how they were helping to transform the company that we were. And after defining the structure, one of the things that we had to do is redesign the system, specifically the system that we had internally of how to do the delivery that we were used to do the delivery, and how we measure the success of our project. Most of the companies that are focusing on the staffing or on the technological side, they measure the success based on, for example, how many tickets they launch in a release, how long is a sprint, how was the feedback from the retrospective, and all those things that are great. But as we were changing our approach in where was our value proposition and how are we going to participate in those projects, we need to consider a lot more than that. Not only the product development side, but from the beginning of the process. How were we participating in the discovery phases? How were we participating in and joining our different partners in the definition of that? There was a specific opportunity analyzing the clients, analyzing the users, and analyzing the market. So we created an internal framework that brought some elements from Teresa Torres' continuous discovery, brought some elements from the Lean Inception approach or Lean Playbook framework, and created our own way of doing things that goes beyond the traditional UX discovery when you're focused only on defining and understanding the real reason why or the motivation behind a user to use a specific product, but to analyze and define that there is a real opportunity from a market standpoint, from a user standpoint, and from a client, our partners, our client standpoint, and to validate that. That makes us change drastically our discovery framework, as I said before, using an opportunity feed where we can validate that there are some different hypotheses and put in trial those different hypotheses in a really short term, involving not only the technical team, but also the product team and the design team, all doing the discovery. What was the challenge in that case when we started doing that? The length of the discovery, as you can imagine. How long is going to be that discovery, right? 2 months? You don't have 2 months. So the truth that's where we are right now, reducing the amount of size. Ideally, if you ask me, I hope that this is a 2 weeks kind of discovery process, but we can discuss that later if you want. But that's where we are right now. We are creating our way of doing things based on not only doing a discovery, but creating a framework, having a framework of validation of the different opportunities. And of course, because we don't forget where we were like 2 years ago, doing the product development, helping our different clients or partners in growing that solution on the long term. And of course, as every single 5 slides of my presentation, I will say this all sounds great in theory, but the truth is that we follow the same structural framework in our process, so we start validating every single step that we did, because we don't have the truth, right? We don't have you never had the real data, you never had enough data to validate that. So what we did is to use the same framework that we are proposing to our clients, to ourselves, to do some activities to validate the market, that there was a market, to do some activities that our service was the kind of service that our clients or our potential clients were interested in acquiring or hiring, and to validate that there is a potential audience that we were pointing. And what we started to do is as I said before, some tests. We started to expand our presence in US to consider and analyze different markets inside US. We did a lot of presence in different events, in different locations, in LA, in New York right now. We have, I don't quite remember where was this picture, but it doesn't matter. San Diego. We have it in different places all over the place, talking with different actors or key actors, current key actors that were to see how they will feel in some change on delivery quality, or not quality, but focus on the delivery, and some potential client or potential clients. And also, as I said a few times, as we were analyzing and defining the personal gap, we had to analyze how those new roles that we were including in our company were going to live together with the different other persons that were already inside our company, right? And this is one of the stressful part of the transformation, that nobody wants to lose anything, right? I mean, change the way that you deliver, but continue growing at the same time. In this, all the things together at the same time. So we continue growing, focusing on this traditional delivery, that was focused on the traditional value position that we used to have. And in the same year, while we were pivoting, while we were creating all the different frameworks and ways to doing things, we opened our offices, or new offices in Uruguay. We opened our new offices in Colombia. How managing or matching or balancing the different offerings that you had, the different opportunities or clients' opportunity that you had at the same time. And after doing that, it was time to start learning and improving. Improving means that, if you remember what I said before, we used to have like different verticals, different areas that weren't correlated because each one of the project was completely independent and they weren't sure about what they were doing and why they were doing that. Okay, so we started putting them together. So the whole design team worked together as a team with a clear goal, with a clear vision what they were doing, and where were they not. And that included new roles, and we're going to talk just a few minutes now. And the product team also, the product team in charge of defining the product strategy of the different partners that we have. The design team giving shape that and discovering and analyzing how the product should live through the product life cycle. And defining new goals for each one of the teams, for each one of the verticals. The product team will have right now different goals of developing a career path, developing a coaching plan inside our company, not only for the product team, but for the whole company, making sure that the whole company follow the product approach, knowledge sharing, content creation, a lot of things that they weren't used to do because they were too focused on how to improve only the code quality in order to previous delivery. Now it was part of the agenda. The same happened with the design team. They started to have their own goals, focusing on improving their design framework. The same happened with the technology. And cross goals now. The technology team understood what the design team were doing, the design team understood what the product team were doing, and so on. And to improve one of the major pain points that are actually happening right now in terms of attrition and things like that, we created a new area which was the culture and innovation team, which was focusing not only on the positioning of the agency or the company as an innovative partner, but how to innovate in the internal culture, how to make sure that the different, we call it UATers, the different person who works in UAT or UAT, felt motivated to work there, no matter the location, because at the same time, one of the challenges that we have is that we were growing in different locations. And at the end of the day, we have like a small review. The truth is that we were like, at the beginning of the year, we still had some elements that were focusing ourselves more on the technological side of the experience. Our tech team was the growth team inside our company. Now we are almost in the goal. It's March already. It's only March, and we are almost in the goal, reaching the goal that we were planning for December in terms of how to transform our agency to a digital product agency. Our product team is growing. Our digital design team is growing. Luckily, thank you for creation this type of structure, understanding that if they do something wrong, there is no problem with that because if you are testing, they start creating or they start trying these frameworks or these processes as MVPs and see how that evolves. And we are now defining what are going to differentiate ourselves from the other key actors that are in the market, the Work and Code, the Meta Labs, so those kind of agencies which do that kind of delivery, but are not thinking in some of the data side kind of delivery that we are working. And what is great, and this is not something that usually you say on a keynote, but what happens is that when you do these kind of changes, it doesn't only impact in the way that you do business, but it also impacts in your design or your organizational design. If you see how we were in January 2021, we were the traditional, and I know that nobody wants to talk about the organizational scheme because this is so old, but sometimes you had to. We had like different verticals, all responding to one only key member, really vertical kind of approach, and we changed it drastically to create a strategy committee that was integrated by members of different verticals, from the growth team, from the operational team, me from the strategic with design, product, and development. And we also added some new strategic roles that you can call, like the product operations, who start working and making sure that the product vision was being implemented on the whole company. And we added a design manager, a tech leader, and a product leader to make sure that all these goals were aligned with that. Although it's much more complex, but we can talk about it later. At the end of the day, right now we have our 4/5 offices right now, and we are luckily can say that we are more than 100, almost 150 product enthusiasts working in our products. We have already launched more than 150 products, and we have more than 13 years of experience. And this is something really important because we know that we cannot forget where we came from. We know that we cannot forget all the different things that brought us here and allow us to continue increasing and growing. And this is a small video that my friend's going to give me a hand with that, like 30 seconds, something like that, about our things that we have done. And I don't know if there is audio there or not. Oh, there it goes. So that's one of the things that happen when you start seeing like the whole product, right? Not only the technological side. So, thank you guys.
I'll stay up there for a second. So do we have any questions for Rodrigo? No? I had a question. So if I have an organization that I want to make this change in, what's your advice for someone who is trying to introduce these concepts and be successful with it?
I think that one of the parts that were really important for us, and I would recommend, is to have the right. It's not ambassador promoter inside the company. The truth that we had the luck of having the board, because we are part of a holding, so we had the board on board of doing something like that. But it's finding the right time, finding the right members of the team that could be included in that in that kind of transformation, and making sure that they all understand why you are doing what you are doing, what you are proposing, what you are proposing. And so like making a team, creating a team who is on board with the transformation, make them on board, make them sure that they understand, that they embrace the change, and let's go with that.
Great. Any other questions? Yeah, right up here. Should have gotten the football mic.
Your point about growing with the traditional offering
Yeah.
at the same time that you're going through the transformation, how do you make sure that the people that are responsible for the growth don't feel like,
Yeah.
how do you balance that's a conflict there? I
That was something really tough. That was something really tough. What we try to do is to be 100% honest with the whole company, to make them sure that the product that they, or the process or the project that they were focused on or doing delivery at that time and that specific time, although that those wasn't the type of project that we would love to work in the future, and that we understood that that wasn't the kind of project that they would love to work in the future, to make them see that if we can transform, it's because of them. And kind of similar to what we answered before, right? To make them sure that they understand what we were going through. And the truth is that it is a process. And what we have done is to put some, I don't want to say ceremonies, but acts during the roadmap, like giving visibility to all the retailers all over the place, to 150, to show them how all the effort that they were bringing to the table wasn't, or not understand, or that wasn't, just taken as granted, but that we were going forward thanks to them. And of course, there are a lot of things that you can do that we have done, like promoting changes, rotation inside the company, like adding those kind of process. But yeah, that's a tough part of the process, and that's one of the reasons why the attrition in all over the world, actually, because it's happening to all the different actors that we work with or that we compete in some cases also, is something that is dramatically impacting, right?